Okay, let's finally start learning how to do input and output with our HTML. So with the actual page instead of those pop-up windows. All right, so we've got this program right here, right? When I click the button, it runs this stuff, ba-da-da, wonderful. All right, so a couple of simple changes. The first one is let's do the output. We already learned how to do this, right? I can set the inner HTML of this paragraph. So there's an empty paragraph here, we can't see it. But I'm going to set the inner HTML of that to be whatever the message is. So instead of doing alert right here, we can do document.getElementById. I forgot what it was called already. That's awful. Greeting, okay. Greeting, same as the function name. Sometimes you got to be careful with that. In this case, the HTML IDs and the function names are okay. But if you had a variable called greeting and a function called greeting, you got to be careful with that. Technically, this is like a variable that's storing this function. So we got to make sure we keep those variable names unique. Okay, but anyway, this is just an ID. So greeting. So the document will search for this element with that ID, and then I will set its inner HTML to be whatever stored inside of the message variable, right? Because I dynamically make that string using the inputs. So that'll be message, and then we'll just get rid of this alert. Okay, let's run that. So when I click the button, it'll run this function, which will prompt me for the inputs, build the message, and then add it to the page. Okay, Megan, morning. And now instead of it replying in the alert here, it's hello, Megan, have a nice morning. Okay, awesome. And just to make that stand out a little bit better, let's change this to an H2. Cool. Okay, now the key part of this lesson is the input. Instead of using prompt to get the user's input, I want to have some information on the page, or some input elements on the page for the user to type in. And we can see that in the notes here. Add an input element with an ID into your HTML document. Input ID, type text. And then when you want to select the value of it, you just select that input element by ID and then go dot value. All right, let's try that. So first I have to go here and we'll add a paragraph over here that'll say what is your name question mark, and then have an input with the ID name in, just for name input, type equals text like so, and then end that paragraph. And then let's have another paragraph says what time of day is it, and again input element ID equals, let's just call it time input, and again type text and end the paragraph, and then please click this button. Okay, good stuff. So let's run this now. Okay, we can see now those input elements, and we're not going to worry about styling right now. We could style this up if we wanted to, but for now we're just making sure we got the functionality down. So I can type stuff in this, Mr. V, and it's the afternoon, but that does nothing right now because when I click, the function still says do these prompt things, right? Okay. So we need to change that. So we're going to replace this prompt by saying when I click this button, I want to get what's stored inside of this input element. So we're going to use our get element by ID, name in, right? So that will tell JavaScript to search the document to select that element with the ID name in, and then we simply add dot value. Now it auto completes to this dot node value. We don't want that. We're just going to hit, if I hit space, I think it cancels that. There we go. We just want dot value. And then same here, document.get element by ID. What did I call it? Time in, I think, dot value. Okay, and then I think that's all I need to change. The variable will now store the value of that input element. This variable will store the value of the other input element. Once they're stored in the variables, it'll build the message and then output the result. So let's run that. So now I can type in Mr. V, morning, I hit click me, moment of truth. Hello, Mr. V, have a nice morning. And then we can change that to Azra and afternoon. Hello, Azra, have a nice afternoon, right? Because this replaces the inner HTML of that element. It becomes assigned the new message. And that is our awesome HTML program. Input from the user, event listeners, output. Ta-da! Super cool. Okay, I was thinking as I did this, this is the console here. Remember, we can also pop this out and have the console that looks a little different in Google Chrome. But there are some things here, some common mistakes. Like what if I did name I? Let's see what that does. Azra afternoon. Click, and I get an error here. This is a super common error, and I hope you watch this video and pay close attention to this so that you don't ask me this. If you need help, totally ask me, but I get this question all the time. Like, I don't understand what's going on. Why? What does this mean? Cannot read property value of null. So whenever we're working with a web page like this in this document.getElementById, a common thing that happens is if I type in the wrong ID, and even if it's like just a spelling, like it's case sensitive. So if I do lowercase instead of uppercase, right? Let's say I did name in like that and hit click me, I get the same thing, cannot read property value of null on line 10 right there, line 10. And the reason it's saying this is it says, I'm trying to read the value property of this, but this is null, and null just means like it doesn't exist, right? It's null. It doesn't have any value. And the reason this is null is because there is no element with the ID name lowercase I in, right? So that's the mistake. So whenever you get this cannot read inner HTML or cannot read value of null, most likely it's just a spelling mistake. The ID here is name in, so I got to make sure that this ID here is name in as well, and then it should be good to go. Okay, anyway, that's a common mistake. Be careful with that. Another thing people sometimes try to do is do .inner HTML here, but remember an input element, right? This input element doesn't have any inner HTML. There's no opening tag, no closing tag, and stuff in between it. So we have to use the value here. And sometimes when I'm testing, it gets annoying to have to type stuff in there. So you can actually initialize the value here, right? We could have done that. Value is assigned Azra, and value is assigned afternoon. So now when I run it, right, by setting the values in the HTML, that's what it'll initially be. Okay, and that's just sometimes nice to do so you don't have to type stuff in when you're testing it. Okay, anyway, I'm going to stop there. That is the end of this crash course here. We've covered all of these topics here. How do we run JavaScript, string and number data, storing things in variables, output, input, and building our final example where we can do input, process, output programs. Awesome. Hope that made sense. Take care, and we'll see you in the next video.